in the heart of the ancient village of Ashwood, nestled amidst rolling hills and shrouded in an air of perpetual twilight. There stood an abandoned well, its depths shrouded in local legend. Whispers swirled around the well, tales of a malevolent spirit that dwelled within its depths, preying on the souls of the unwary. I, a young and curious soul, was drawn to the well's mystique, its allure irresistible. One moonless night, I ventured into the forbidden woods, guided by the faint glow of my lantern. The air grew heavy, the silence oppressive, as I approached the well's ominous silhouette. Peering into its depths, I was met with an impenetrable darkness, as if the well itself was absorbing all light. A chill ran down my spine, a primal fear gripping my heart. Yet I couldn't tear my gaze away, compelled by an unseen force. As I stood there, mesmerized by the abyss, a whisper brushed against my ear, a voice so faint, yet so clear it sent shivers down my spine. "Come closer," it beckoned, its tone laced with a chilling promise. Fear paralyzed me, yet an irresistible curiosity propelled me forward. I cautiously edged closer, my lantern casting an eerie glow upon the well's mossy rim. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, their seductive allure impossible to resist. Suddenly, a gust of wind extinguished my lantern, plunging me into darkness. Panic surged through me, my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. The whispers intensified, their tone now filled with malice. "Join us," they echoed, their voices multiplying, filling the air with a chilling chorus. "Become one of us." I stumbled back, desperate to escape the well's malevolent influence, but my feet seemed rooted to the spot. The whispers grew louder, closer, until they seemed to emanate from within my own mind. "You belong here," they taunted, their voices seeping into my soul. "Embrace the darkness." I felt myself falling, plunging into the well's depths, the whispers enveloping me like a shroud. The darkness consumed me, and I surrendered to its embrace. When I awoke, I found myself lying on the forest floor, the first rays of dawn filtering through the trees. The well loomed before me, its depths once again shrouded in silence. I was shaken to my core, my mind reeling from the night's events. Had it been a nightmare, a figment of my overactive imagination? Or had I truly encountered the well's malevolent spirit? The villagers of Ashwood warned me to stay away from the well, their eyes filled with fear and pity. They spoke of others who had ventured too close, their souls forever lost to the well's darkness. I tried to ignore their warnings, to convince myself it had been a mere hallucination. But the whispers lingered, echoing in the recesses of my mind, reminding me of the well's insatiable hunger. Night after night, I found myself drawn back to the well, its allure irresistible, its whispers intoxicating. I stood at its edge, peering into the darkness, longing for the oblivion it promised. One night, as I stood mesmerized by the well's depths, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. Its skeletal hand reached out towards me, its touch icy cold. I screamed, but no sound escaped my lips. I was trapped, paralyzed by fear. The figure's grip tightened, pulling me towards the well's edge. Just as I was about to fall into the abyss, a voice echoed through the woods, a voice filled with warmth and power. "Let her go," it commanded. The figure froze, its gaze fixed on the unseen source of the voice. Then, with a final, menacing glare, it released its grip and retreated into the darkness. I collapsed to the ground, trembling with fear and relief. The voice, gentle and reassuring, spoke to me, its words soothing my troubled soul. It told me of the well's malevolent spirit, its insatiable hunger for lost souls. It explained that I had been chosen not to become a victim, but to be a beacon of hope, a guide for those lost in the darkness. With the voice's guidance, I learned to confront my fears, to embrace the darkness without succumbing to its despair. I emerged from the woods a changed person, no longer afraid of the well's whispers, but empowered to face its darkness. I became a protector of the village, a guardian against the well's malevolent influence. And so, the legend of the Whispering Well persisted, not as a tale of terror, but as a story of resilience, courage, and the enduring power of hope. Story 2. Nestled amidst the rolling hills of England, shrouded in an air of mystery and intrigue, stood Blackwood Manor, a grand old mansion steeped in local legend. Whispers swirled around the mansion, tales of a malevolent presence that dwelled within its walls, a restless spirit unable to find peace. I, a young and inquisitive soul, was captivated by the mansion's allure, its aura of mystery irresistible. One stormy night, I ventured into the forbidden grounds, my heart pounding with anticipation and a hint of fear. As I approached the mansion's imposing facade, the wind howled, and rain lashed against the ancient stone walls. The mansion's windows glowed with an eerie light, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to beckon me closer. With a trembling hand, I pushed open the creaky front door, its hinges groaning in protest. The interior of the mansion was dark and musty, the air heavy with the scent of decay. Cobwebs hung from the rafters, and dust lay thick upon the furniture, as if the mansion had been untouched for centuries. I cautiously ventured deeper into the mansion, my footsteps echoing through the cavernous halls. The portraits of former residents watched me with their cold, lifeless eyes, their expressions twisted into masks of sorrow and despair. As I explored the mansion's forgotten rooms, I felt a strange presence, an unseen entity that seemed to follow my every move. The air grew colder, and an unsettling silence filled the halls, broken only by the occasional creak of the old floorboards beneath my feet. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, sending shivers down my spine. The scream came from the upper floors, echoing through the mansion like a banshee's wail. Fear gripped me, but I knew I had to investigate. I slowly climbed the grand staircase, my heart pounding in my chest. The scream had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was even more terrifying. I reached the top of the stairs and found myself standing before a heavy oak door. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint light emanated from within. With a trembling hand, I pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit room. In the center of the room stood a spectral figure, its form translucent and shimmering. The figure's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its face was contorted in a mask of agony. The figure raised its hand towards me, and I felt a surge of icy cold wash over me. I braced myself for the inevitable, but the figure did not attack. Instead, it spoke to me in a voice that was both mournful and desperate. "Help me," the figure pleaded. "I am trapped in this mansion, unable to find peace." I was taken aback by the figure's plea. Despite its terrifying appearance, I felt a surge of compassion for the tormented spirit. "What can I do?" I asked cautiously. "Find the object that binds me to this place," the figure replied. "Destroy it, and I shall finally be free." With the figure's words echoing in my mind, I embarked on a quest to uncover the object that held the spirit captive. I searched every room, every nook and cranny of the mansion, determined to break the spirit's curse. After hours of searching, I finally found what I was looking for, a small, ornate locket hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the mansion's attic. The locket was tarnished and worn, but its clasp was still secure. I carefully opened the locket, and a single tear emerged from its depths, hovering in the air before me. The tear glowed with an ethereal light, and I knew that this was the object that bound the spirit to the mansion. I held the tear in my hand, feeling its warmth radiating through my skin. Then, with a deep breath, I crushed the tear between my fingers. A blinding light erupted from the locket, filling the entire mansion. The spectral figure appeared before me, its form now radiant and serene. "Thank you," the figure whispered, its voice filled with gratitude. "You have set me free." With a final grateful smile, the figure faded away, leaving behind an air of peace and tranquility. I had freed the spirit from its torment, and in doing so, I had lifted the curse that had haunted Blackwood Manor for centuries. As I left the mansion that night, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting its warm glow upon the once ominous facade. Blackwood Manor was no longer a place of fear, but a sanctuary of peace, a reminder of the power of compassion and the enduring spirit of hope. Story 3. Perched atop a rugged cliff overlooking the stormy waters of the North Sea, the lighthouse of Cape Wrath stood as a beacon of hope for mariners navigating the treacherous coastline. Its haunting beauty, however, was overshadowed by a dark legacy, a tale of tragedy and despair that had left its mark upon the ancient structure. I had always been fascinated by the stories surrounding the lighthouse, tales of a restless spirit that roamed its halls, a spectral figure seeking solace and redemption. As an aspiring paranormal investigator, I was drawn to the lighthouse's mystique, its aura of mystery irresistible. On a stormy night, I ventured to the remote outpost, determined to uncover the truth behind the lighthouse's haunting legend. The wind howled, lashing against the cliffside, and the waves crashed against the rocks with a deafening roar. As I approached the lighthouse, a chill ran down my spine. The air was heavy with an oppressive silence, broken only by the cries of the seabirds circling above. The lighthouse stood imposingly before me, its windows glowing with an eerie luminescence. I entered the lighthouse, my heart pounding with anticipation and a hint of fear. The interior was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of salt and mildew. A sense of unease settled over me as I ventured deeper into the labyrinthine corridors. As I explored the lighthouse, I encountered strange occurrences, flickering lights, disembodied voices, and fleeting shadows that danced at the edge of my vision. The presence of the restless spirit was palpable, its energy filling the air with an unsettling tension. In the lantern room at the top of the lighthouse, I finally encountered the spectral figure. It was a man, tall and gaunt, with a sorrowful expression etched upon his face. His eyes were filled with a deep-seated sadness, a longing for something he could never have. I cautiously approached the figure, my voice trembling as I spoke to him. I told him of my desire to understand his story, to help him find peace. The figure responded in a voice that was barely a whisper, his words filled with regret and despair. He told me of his life as the lighthouse keeper, of his loneliness and isolation, and of the tragic events that led to his untimely demise. As he spoke, I felt a deep sense of empathy for the tormented spirit. His story was one of loss, regret, and unfulfilled potential. He had become trapped in a cycle of suffering, unable to find solace or release. With a gentle hand, I reached out and touched the spectral figure's arm. A surge of energy coursed through me, and I felt a connection with his spirit. I could sense his pain, his longing for peace, and his desire to be released from the purgatory that had become his existence. I spoke to him in a calming voice, reassuring him that his suffering was not in vain, that his story would serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of compassion. I told him that he was not alone, that there were those who cared for him and wanted to help him find peace. Story 4. As a child, I was always drawn to the abandoned dollhouse that stood at the edge of our property. Its paint was peeling, its windows were boarded up, and its once vibrant colors had faded into a muted palette of grays and browns. Yet, there was something about it that captivated my imagination, a sense of mystery and intrigue that I couldn't resist. One summer afternoon, I decided to venture into the dollhouse. I squeezed through a gap in the boarded-up windows and found myself inside a dusty, dimly lit interior. The air was thick with the smell of old wood and mildew, and cobwebs draped the furniture like ghostly shrouds. I cautiously explored the dollhouse, my fingers tracing the delicate carvings on the walls and furniture. I peered into the tiny rooms, imagining the life that had once filled them. The silence was broken only by the creak of the floorboards beneath my feet and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures. As I ventured deeper into the dollhouse, I felt a strange sensation, as if I was being watched. I stopped and listened intently, but there was no sound, only the oppressive silence of the abandoned structure. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper, a child's voice calling my name. The voice was so faint, so ethereal, that I wasn't sure if I had imagined it. "Come here," the voice whispered again. I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. The voice was so soft, so pleading, that I couldn't ignore it. I took a deep breath and followed the sound of the voice towards the back room of the dollhouse. In the room, I found a small wooden rocking chair, and a porcelain doll sat in it. The doll was dressed in a tattered lace dress, its porcelain face pale and delicate. Its eyes, large and blue, were fixed on me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "Hello," the doll whispered, its voice as faint as a breath of wind. I was speechless, my mind struggling to comprehend what was happening. A doll was talking to me, its voice clear and distinct. "Don't be afraid," the doll said, its voice laced with a childlike innocence. "I'm just lonely." I felt a wave of compassion for the doll. I could sense the loneliness and sadness that emanated from its porcelain form. I sat down on the floor beside it and reached out to touch its tiny hand. The doll's hand was cold, like ice, but I didn't pull away. I felt a strange connection to the doll, a sense of understanding and empathy. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, the doll sharing its stories and dreams. I told the doll about my own life, my fears and hopes. We laughed and cried together, and I felt a bond forming between us. As the sun began to set, I knew it was time to leave. I said goodbye to the doll, promising to return the next day. The doll smiled at me, its eyes filled with gratitude. I left the dollhouse feeling lighter than I had in years. The weight of my loneliness had been lifted, replaced by a sense of connection and belonging. I knew that I had found a friend in the most unexpected place. Story 5. Nestled amidst the rolling hills of upstate New York, enveloped in a veil of mystery and intrigue, stood the grand and imposing Serenity Heights mansion. Its once vibrant facade now bore the marks of time, its grandeur faded, its elegance shadowed by a lingering sense of unease. As a child, I was drawn to the mansion's mystique, its secrets beckoning me to unravel their hidden depths. One moonless night, under the ethereal glow of a star-studded sky, I ventured into the mansion's depths, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The air within the mansion was thick with dust and the lingering scent of decay, a stark contrast to the opulence that once filled its halls. Cobwebs draped the ornate furniture, and shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, casting eerie silhouettes that seemed to move with a life of their own. As I delved deeper into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, a sense of foreboding settled over me, a chilling presence that seemed to follow my every move. The silence was broken only by the creaking floorboards beneath my feet and the occasional gust of wind that rattled the mansion's ancient windows. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed through the halls, its sound reverberating through the mansion's depths, sending shivers down my spine. I froze in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with fear. The scream was followed by a deafening silence, an oppressive stillness that amplified the mansion's haunting atmosphere. Driven by a mix of curiosity and trepidation, I followed the sound of the scream, my footsteps echoing through the deserted corridors. The scream had led me to an abandoned nursery, its once cheerful decor now faded and decaying. A rocking horse stood motionless in the center of the room, its painted smile frozen in an eerie grin. Standing beside the rocking horse, a spectral figure appeared, its form translucent and ethereal. Its eyes, large and sorrowful, seemed to pierce through me, sending a wave of icy fear down my spine. The figure extended its hand towards me, its touch as cold as the grave. Overwhelmed by a surge of terror, I fled from the nursery, my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. The spectral figure's presence had left an indelible mark on my psyche, a chilling reminder of the mansion's haunting past. Night after night, I returned to Serenity Heights, drawn by an irresistible force, compelled to unravel the mansion's secrets and uncover the truth behind its haunting legacy. With each visit, the mansion revealed more of its hidden depths, its secrets gradually unfolding like the pages of an ancient tome. I discovered hidden rooms filled with dusty relics, forgotten diaries filled with tales of love, loss, and betrayal. The mansion's history unfolded before me, a tapestry of grandeur and tragedy, of love and betrayal, of life and death. As I delved deeper into the mansion's mysteries, I encountered more spectral figures, their presence lingering in the mansion's dimly lit corridors. They spoke to me in whispers, their voices filled with sorrow and longing, revealing fragments of their tragic past. I learned of the mansion's former inhabitants, a family once renowned for their wealth and influence, now consumed by tragedy and despair. A tale of unrequited love, a broken heart, and a soul forever bound to the mansion's walls. The weight of the mansion's tragic history pressed upon me, a burden I carried with each step through its haunted halls. Yet, amidst the darkness and despair, I found a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light that refused to be extinguished. The spectral figures, once lost and tormented, began to find solace in my presence. I listened to their stories, offering them compassion and understanding, helping them find peace in the afterlife. As the mansion's secrets were gradually revealed, its haunting legacy began to fade. The weight of the past lifted, the mansion's walls no longer echoing with the whispers of restless spirits. Serenity Heights, once a place of darkness and despair, transformed into a sanctuary of peace, a testament to the power of compassion and understanding. Story 6. Nestled amidst the rolling hills of the English countryside, shrouded in an aura of mystery and intrigue, stood the imposing Blackwood Manor. Its weathered stone walls, gnarled ivy, and towering turrets whispered tales of a bygone era, a time of grandeur and elegance, now marred by tragedy and despair. As a curious and adventurous soul, I was drawn to the manor's mystique, its secrets beckoning me to unravel their hidden depths. One moonless night, under the eerie glow of a waning crescent moon, I ventured into the manor's depths, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The air within the manor was thick with dust and the lingering scent of decay, a stark contrast to the opulence that once filled its halls. Cobwebs draped the ornate furniture, and shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, casting eerie silhouettes that seemed to move with a life of their own. As I delved deeper into the manor's labyrinthine corridors, a sense of unease settled over me, a chilling presence that seemed to follow my every move. The silence was broken only by the creaking floorboards beneath my feet and the occasional gust of wind that rattled the manor's ancient windows. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed through the halls, its sound reverberating through the manor's depths, sending shivers down my spine. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with fear. The scream was followed by a deafening silence, an oppressive stillness that amplified the manor's haunting atmosphere. Driven by a mix of curiosity and fear, I followed the sound of the scream, my footsteps echoing through the deserted corridors. The scream had led me to a grand ballroom, its once elegant decor now faded and decaying. A chandelier hung from the center of the room, its crystals glinting in the candlelight, casting an eerie glow upon the deserted dance floor. In the center of the ballroom, a spectral figure stood transfixed, its body translucent and ethereal. Its eyes, large and hollow, seemed to pierce through me, sending a wave of icy fear down my spine. The figure's form began to fade, its translucent body dissolving into the surrounding mist. As I stood there, stunned and speechless, a voice echoed through the ballroom, its tone laced with sadness and regret. "Welcome to Blackwood Manor," the voice whispered, "a place where the past lingers and the future remains shrouded in uncertainty." I was speechless, my mind struggling to comprehend what I had just witnessed. A spectral figure, a haunting voice. Was this a figment of my imagination, a product of fear and superstition? Or was I truly in the presence of the manor's restless spirits, trapped within its walls by the weight of their tragic past? Night after night, I returned to Blackwood Manor, drawn by an irresistible force, compelled to unravel the manor's secrets and uncover the truth behind its haunting legacy. With each visit, the manor revealed more of its hidden depths, its secrets gradually unfolding like the pages of an ancient tome. I discovered hidden rooms filled with dusty relics, forgotten diaries filled with tales of love, loss, and betrayal. The manor's history unfolded before me, a tapestry of grandeur and tragedy, of love and betrayal, of life and death. As I delved deeper into the manor's mysteries, I encountered more spectral figures, their presence lingering in the manor's dimly lit corridors. They spoke to me in whispers, their voices filled with sorrow and longing, revealing fragments of their tragic past. I learned of the manor's former inhabitants, a family once renowned for their wealth and influence, now consumed by tragedy and despair. A tale of unrequited love, a broken heart, and a soul forever bound to the manor's walls. The weight of the manor's tragic history pressed upon me, a burden I carried with each step through its haunted halls. Yet, amidst the darkness and despair, I found a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light that refused to be extinguished. The spectral figures, once lost and tormented, began to find solace in my presence. I listened to their stories, offering them compassion and understanding, helping them find peace in the afterlife. The manor's atmosphere gradually shifted, the oppressive darkness giving way to a sense of tranquility. The spectral figures, once filled with sorrow, began to fade, their spirits finally finding release from the manor's haunting grip. As the manor's secrets were gradually revealed, its haunting legacy began to fade. The weight of the past lifted, the manor's walls no longer echoing with the whispers of restless spirits. Blackwood Manor, once a place of darkness and despair, transformed into a sanctuary of peace, a testament to the power of compassion and understanding. Story 7. Nestled amidst the sprawling grounds of Oakhaven Manor, a grand estate steeped in local legend and whispered tales of the supernatural, stood an ancient, abandoned dollhouse. Its once vibrant paint had faded, its windows were boarded up, and its tiny rooms remained frozen in time, their secrets locked away from the world. As a child, I was drawn to the dollhouse's allure, its mystique beckoning me to unravel its hidden depths. One gloomy afternoon, under the ominous shadow of Oakhaven Manor's towering facade, I ventured into the dollhouse's depths, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The air within the dollhouse was thick with dust and the lingering scent of mildew, a stark contrast to the opulence that once filled its grand counterpart. Cobwebs draped the miniature furniture, and shadows danced in the flickering sunlight that streamed through the gaps in the boarded-up windows, casting eerie silhouettes that seemed to move with a life of their own. As I delved deeper into the dollhouse's labyrinthine corridors, a sense of unease settled over me, a chilling presence that seemed to follow my every move. The silence was broken only by the creaking floorboards beneath my feet and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures. Suddenly, a faint melody echoed through the dollhouse, a haunting tune that seemed to emanate from the depths of its miniature rooms. The melody was both beautiful and melancholic, its notes swirling around me like wisps of smoke, stirring a deep-seated emotion within me. Driven by an irresistible curiosity, I followed the melody to a room at the back of the dollhouse. Inside, a small porcelain doll sat in a miniature rocking chair, its porcelain face pale and delicate. Its eyes, large and blue, were fixed on me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. As I approached the doll, the melody grew louder, its notes filling the room with a mesmerizing cadence. The doll's eyes seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, its porcelain face reflecting the haunting beauty of the melody. "Welcome," the doll whispered, its voice as faint as a breath of wind. "I've been waiting for you." I froze in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. A doll was talking to me, its voice clear and distinct. I couldn't believe my ears, yet I couldn't deny the reality of what was happening. "Don't be afraid," the doll continued, its voice laced with a childlike innocence. "I'm just lonely." I felt a wave of compassion for the doll. I could sense the loneliness and sadness that emanated from its porcelain form. I sat down on the floor beside it and reached out to touch its tiny hand. The doll's hand was as cold as ice, but I didn't pull away. I felt a strange connection to the doll, a sense of understanding and empathy. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, the doll sharing its stories and dreams. I told the doll about my own life, my fears and hopes. We laughed and cried together, and I felt a bond forming between us. As the sun began to set, I knew it was time to leave. I said goodbye to the doll, promising to return the next day. The doll smiled at me, its eyes filled with gratitude. I left the dollhouse feeling lighter than I had in years. The weight of my loneliness had been lifted, replaced by a sense of connection and belonging. I knew that I had found a friend in the most unexpected place. Night after night, I returned to the abandoned dollhouse, drawn by an irresistible force. I spent hours talking to the doll, listening to its stories, sharing my own. We became inseparable companions, our friendship a beacon of light in the darkness of the abandoned dollhouse. One night, as I sat beside the doll, the melody grew louder, more insistent. The doll's eyes glowed with an ethereal light, and its porcelain face took on a serene expression. "It's time for me to go," the doll whispered, its voice filled with a sense of peace. "Thank you for being my friend." I watched in silence as the doll's form began to fade, its porcelain body dissolving into the surrounding air. The melody reached its crescendo, then faded away, leaving behind an echo of its haunting beauty. I was left alone in the abandoned dollhouse, the memory of the doll still fresh in my mind. I knew that I would never forget our friendship, or the lessons I had learned from the lonely doll in the abandoned dollhouse of Oakhaven Manor. Story 8. Nestled at the rugged edge of Scotland's northernmost coast, battered by the relentless force of the North Atlantic, stood the imposing Cape Wrath lighthouse. Its weathered stone walls, towering beacon, and eerie isolation had long fueled local legends of restless spirits and unexplained occurrences. As a seasoned lighthouse keeper, I was no stranger to tales of the supernatural, but I dismissed them as mere folklore, the product of overactive imaginations in the harsh coastal environment. However, as I took up my duties at Cape Wrath, I began to experience a series of unsettling events that challenged my skepticism. Strange noises echoed through the lighthouse's labyrinthine corridors. Doors creaked open and slammed shut of their own accord, and shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, their movements eerily lifelike. The lighthouse's foghorn, a beacon of hope for countless mariners, seemed to wail with a mournful intensity, its mournful cries echoing across the desolate landscape. One moonless night, as I stood guard in the lighthouse's tower, I witnessed a sight that defied explanation. A spectral figure, clad in a tattered sailor's uniform, emerged from the swirling mist that enveloped the lighthouse. Its eyes, hollow and sunken, seemed to pierce through the darkness, and its ethereal form shimmered with an otherworldly glow. The spectral figure raised its hand, pointing towards the turbulent sea. A sudden storm erupted, its fury unmatched in my years of service. The waves crashed with thunderous force against the lighthouse's base, threatening to engulf the structure in its watery grip. As I watched in disbelief, the spectral figure transformed, its form morphing into a colossal sea serpent, its scales glinting menacingly in the moonlight. The serpent reared its head, its jaws agape, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. With a deafening roar, it lunged towards the lighthouse, its jaws snapping just inches from my face. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind reeling from the terrifying sight. The serpent retreated into the swirling mist, leaving me alone and trembling in the tower's chamber. The haunting encounters continued, each one more unsettling than the last. I felt a constant presence, an unseen entity that seemed to watch my every move, its malevolent energy permeating the lighthouse's atmosphere. The weight of the lighthouse's haunting legacy pressed upon me, a burden I carried with each passing day. Despite the fear and unease that gripped me, I was determined to uncover the truth behind the lighthouse's haunting. I delved into the lighthouse's archives, poring over dusty logs and forgotten tales, searching for clues to its spectral inhabitants. I discovered the tragic story of a young sailor, lost at sea during a violent storm. His body was never recovered, and his spirit, tormented by its untimely demise, was said to haunt the lighthouse, seeking solace and a final resting place. With a heavy heart, I set out to help the lost sailor find peace. I performed a vigil at the lighthouse's edge, reciting prayers and offering words of comfort to the restless spirit. As I spoke, the lighthouse's haunting presence seemed to diminish, the oppressive atmosphere gradually lifting. The spectral figure of the sailor appeared once more, its form translucent and ethereal. It looked at me with a newfound sense of calm, its eyes filled with gratitude. With a final nod, the sailor's form faded into the mist, leaving behind a lingering sense of serenity. The haunting of Cape Wrath Lighthouse had come to an end. The lost sailor had found peace, and the lighthouse's oppressive atmosphere had been dispelled. The beacon of light that once served as a warning to mariners now stood as a testament to the power of compassion and understanding.